friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Aireonna, joined by the wonderful Marco from Clutch Teen Sports. Everyone, make sure you guys go like and subscribe to Marco's channel because he came in and did me a solid by filling in. Steph actually told me this isn't her bad. She told me last week she wasn't going to be able to make it, and then both of us forgot to talk about it since, so I sent her the link, and then she was like, I'm not going to be able to make it. And so I put the link if anyone wants to call in, talk to with both Marco and I, or after Marco leaves, if you guys want to call in, you can do that. But besides that, hi Marco, how are you doing today? Monday.
I'm doing great.
I normally see you to end the week. Normally we're talking about the end of the week, but I get to talk to you on this after a weekend. You do anything special?
So definitely. We went to go watch Stanford women's softball play.
Ooh.
So we always like to watch softball. Softball's fun to watch. And then Sunday we had like.
Speaking of, you're wearing the Giants hat. My friend is like teaching me baseball right now. It's confusing as hell if you don't know about it. Like if you didn't grow up with it already, I feel like. But I also feel like 7-year-old boys play baseball, so I should be able to figure it out. You know?
Yeah, you should be able to. Not too
Alvani
hard.
says, happy solar eclipse day. I know in the Bay Area, they said at like 11 something was supposed to be when it was at its like most peak. Did you notice any difference? I didn't. I went outside. It just
I work from home. But a lot of my coworkers, they live in the East Coast, so they were able to see like the full darkness. Yeah. So they sent videos, and the videos they sent were pretty cool. Like there was actually like you could see like the moon, and then you could see on the outer end you could just see like the sun. So that was pretty cool to see because like they got some pretty good videos. But no, I work from home inside. Went outside, didn't look at it. Because obviously I don't have the glasses.
Everyone
I use my
like,
phone.
Oh, yeah. Everyone was like, oh, you're gonna like go blind if you look at it. Which, okay.
I heard you're already blind, aren't you?
I'm deaf in this ear. That's why I always wear like one headphone.
So. Oh, but you have good vision.
I have good vision.
I could have sworn you told me you couldn't see last time.
I mean, I might just like have sometimes I'm like I have like low iron, so sometimes I get like dots in my eyes. But anyways, aside from the solar eclipse, we have some football to talk about, which is exciting. Draft is freaking coming up, and I kind of wanted to talk. It's interesting. Oh, it's so interesting that we get to talk. I get to talk to you about this, but I was thinking because we're talking about draft strategy and if the 49ers are going to be able to like rebuild such a dominant team. I think last year they probably had the best team in the NFL. I think some people assume like if you have the best team, you're going to win the Super Bowl. But I actually don't think it's that easy. I think your coach has to be on point. Like it's one game, your coach has to be on point. Your quarterback has to be on point. Your offensive line has to work. So even if you have the best team, you can still be outplayed by another team that maybe has a worse overall roster, but a better quarterback. But I do feel like fans and national media and people give the 49ers a lot of credit for having the best roster in football. And I don't know if this is like negative, but I kind of feel like they shouldn't be given as much credit for that as they get, because to me, it's very obvious that they should have the best roster in the NFL because Brock Purdy is a cheat code under his salary. Like they have more money than everyone else because they're not paying people who are paying Sam Darnold, the Vikings this year, are paying more for their quarterback than the 49ers are. So in my opinion, there's no reason that the 49ers shouldn't have the best roster in the NFL if they have like such a low priced quarterback, right? So this to me, is the last year of Brock Purdy's rookie deal. We've heard a lot that Kyle Shanahan and Jed York are more than willing to pay Brock Purdy top dollar. But I think that it makes sense and shouldn't have even been hard for the 49ers to have the best roster last year. And I think they should have the best roster this year. And I think if there's ever a time where Brock Purdy's the quarterback and not getting paid, so last year and this year, where they didn't have the best roster, that would be an incredible negative statement on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan for them not to be able to build up a roster when they basically aren't paying their quarterback.
Yeah, I think
Even
I
though
wouldn't
they're
necessarily say
I mean,
it's a
CJ
cheat
Stroud.
code. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a cheat code, and the only reason I would say it's not, like, I get like the point like you're making, because it is like you're right, like it is an advantage to have a quarterback who is making less than $1 million on the salary cap for the last couple of years. But the reason why I say it isn't a cheat code is because the Niners built their roster for a different quarterback, right? So initially they were building their roster for a guy like Trey Lance, stronger arm, better talent. That's why they drafted a guy like Danny Gray, who we haven't seen yet. That's why they went all in on CMC. But now the talent that they had drafted,
well, they got
isn't based
CMC
off of
after they got Trey off the roster, right?
yeah, off the roster. But everything, so like when you look at it, like the
They were building for
roster was
Jimmy at that
built
time.
it was more for in line towards Trey, right? Like they were building a solid foundation, obviously, and then like some of like the holdovers, they were Jimmy guys, right? So I wouldn't say necessarily he's a cheat code. I think the advantage of having him at a low cap hit is extreme advantage. You could see it as a cheat code, but I just don't see where it becomes a cheat code, because the Niners have to turn their offensive game play style, their team around, and they have to build an offense for Brock Purdy. So it's not necessarily a cheat code, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if that, like, what I'm thinking, like what I'm trying to say in my head makes sense.
It is like potentially if they would have drafted all their players and constructed their roster for Brock Purdy, then it would be even better, I think is what you're trying to say. And potentially they wasted some resources on guys that Brock Purdy doesn't have the skill set to like best utilize. I can see that. I just feel like it's not an excuse. I feel like when you have and that's why I feel like there's no reason for the 49ers not to win a Super Bowl this year. My initial reaction is just that even back-to-back getting to Super Bowls, not even winning, seems pretty impossible. And if I had to bet, I would.
I do not know what's
Marco
going on.
is in the house, baby. If I had to bet,
okay, there it is.
If I had to bet, I would bet the 49ers don't make it back to the Super Bowl this year. Not because I don't think that they're talented enough to. I imagine that they'll get to the playoffs and probably even far in the playoffs. But I just think it's very difficult for teams to always, get that far. The Chiefs have gotten multiple Super Bowls, so maybe they're starting to show that it is more possible, but they also have the best quarterback in the NFL right now, and
probably
I think yeah, and also the best coach in the NFL as well. I just think having such an advantage, like they basically are playing with a different salary cap than other teams are playing, which is kind of why I find conversations like I'm going to ask you in a second, is Aiyuk worth the money? Like stuff like that. Like right now, you should not be worried about money. You have such a savings that other teams don't have. In my opinion, they should not be like cutting corners financial wise, at least this year. Do you feel like that's fair? Like this year, they can afford to pay Aiyuk. They can afford to pay Deebo Samuel. They can afford Kittle. They can sign people in the draft. I just feel like it frustrates me when I hear kind of talking heads being like, well, the 49ers, you can't pay everyone. You can't, the Chiefs don't have a number one wide receiver. The Bills had to get rid of, they didn't have to get rid of Stephon Diggs because of payment, but they've had to get rid of other players because of payment. And my response to that is they're paying their quarterbacks $40 to $50 million a year. So that's a huge chunk of their cap space that the 49ers don't have to allocate right now. So for them not to go all in and be able to pay guys is crazy to me. Really quickly,
I agree with you. I agree with you on that point, because I'll let you go do what you got to do, but I agree with you, and I'll explain why.
I was gonna say, I see my dad joined, and I wanted to see if he wanted to say something because I don't think he has good service where he is. Really quick. Hi, Daddy. Can you see us?
This is I can see you both, but this is a good one. This is a good one for you guys to think about. Okay, it's going to cause some controversy too, but this is the way I look at it. If you want to throw money away, sign me up. I'll sit on the bench for $25 million a year. The problem is, we should keep Aiyuk as much as possible. The reason we should get rid of him, though, and the reason we have to get rid of him is he's a talented guy. We're going to pay him $25 million to run, 3 plays a game, maybe 4. He's getting paid too much to sit on the bench and not be used. Shanahan may have some wild hair up his ass, but he won't ever use him. The money he should be paid. Oh, I hear you guys fine. But
I can hear him. I can hear him. Can't hear him?
Yes.
I can't see or hear him.
You guys need to.
Now he's gone.
Okay. I love you so much, Daddy. I feel like I got your point, and we're going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk, and I'll make a case for the 49ers to not pay him. I'm going to take you off, but I love you. I hope you're feeling better. Everyone,
so I was able to hear like
he's also sick.
I was able to hear like the base of what he was trying to say, right? Like I agree with the point of if for Brandon Aiyuk, how he's underutilized, like he was saying, like he's only going to be utilized 3 plays a game or targeted 3 plays a game, whatever like that. That's a great argument for not paying a top receiver, right? Because we know Brandon Aiyuk.
Or is it a great argument for not paying Brock Purdy?
But why would you not pay Brock Purdy in that situation? If you think
where I'm going out with that.
So you're essentially saying Brock Purdy is the reason we don't pass as much, right? Like that's the kind of argument you could make on why you don't pay an elite receiver like Brandon Aiyuk. It's to pass first, it's to run. Yeah. To run first offense. So you could make that argument, but when I look at it, Brandon Aiyuk is a different kind of receiver in this offense. Now, we have good receivers, and the reason why you do pay him is he's your best man-to-man route runner. Like he's the best route runner overall. He's your most complete receiver. And without that kind of guy, you don't have any route runners. You need someone like that to be Brock Purdy's best friend, to make life. Again, if you don't think Brock Purdy is that guy, Brandon Aiyuk's going to make his life easier. So you need to pay those top end receivers for your quarterback.
Can I say something though?
Of course, it's your show.
With Deebo Samuel, I feel like that was the argument with Deebo Samuel as well. It was like we have to keep Deebo because he's a cheat code for these quarterbacks. He can do things that other wide receivers can't. He can have dump off passes. Now, I feel like them getting Christian McCaffrey kind of negated a lot of Deebo Samuel's production, and then also Deebo like simultaneously got out of shape and like just became less effective in his own role. So I think it allowed Christian McCaffrey to excel because he was, I think, also putting more effort in. But they do have similar skill sets, and I would agree with you. And even Kyle Shanahan said this, like when he was asked about keeping Brandon Aiyuk, he said a guy like Brandon Aiyuk is Brock Purdy's best friend. And when you're focusing on signing a franchise quarterback, you want to have weapons, because without weapons, even if you have a star quarterback, there's no one for him to throw to. Now, that's a quote from Kyle Shanahan from the Orlando annual owners meetings. However, if I'm trying to make my dad, go off what my dad was saying, his point, maybe instead of saying, hey, this is Brock Purdy's bad, maybe it's Kyle Shanahan's. Maybe if Kyle Shanahan had Patrick Mahomes, he would still want to run a run first offense, and he still wouldn't be passing the ball as much. And if Kyle Shanahan's not going to adjust his scheme or his system, I can understand not wanting to pay a guy like Brandon Aiyuk that amount of money, because he's not worth it if he's only going to be getting 6 touches in playoff games. You know what I mean? If at the end of the I know you and I have talked about that 3rd and 4 play, and you've talked about like it being unacceptable that Brock Purdy didn't get the ball to Brandon Aiyuk on that show that he did Nightcap with Shannon Sharp. Aiyuk said he wasn't surprised at all that he didn't get the ball because they've ran that in practice a million times. And that play is specifically run for Juwan Jennings, meaning Kyle Shanahan called a play for Juwan Jennings in the crisis moment, like in the gotta have it moment. Instead of trying to get the ball to BA, Kyle Shanahan called up a play that wasn't for him. So I even
rewatched the play earlier today, actually, and I noticed George Kittle running a route, and he could have essentially went to George Kittle, and George Kittle likely picks up the first down. I don't know, but it's in like that vicinity. Obviously, George Kittle probably his last option on that play because he's intentionally blocking first, and then he's leaking out for a route. But so for me, it is Kyle Shanahan's fault, and I'm going to talk about that later today with Jay Harp on my show in terms of how can Kyle evolve. So like you're right, like you have the 100% where Kyle needs to do something in order to utilize his best players. You need to understand that one, this is a
This is
passing
like
league now.
multiple Super Bowls where he hasn't gotten the ball in his best player's hand at the end of the game.
Do you think so? I mentioned this the other day on Grant's show. I want to know what you have to say about this because it's right. Like it's so. We saw Kyle go away from Deebo Samuel against the Chiefs 4 years ago. He went away from him, and we saw what happened. Right now, this Super Bowl, we saw him not go to Brandon Aiyuk, but go to Deebo extremely. Do you think Kyle Shanahan rewatched that game, that first game, and said,
"It's like I need
to go to Deebo all damn game," and then he did it, and that's why they lost. Like
didn't
go back.
Mm-hmm.
There he is.
Oh yes, thank you, Marco, for saying that. That's the problem with Shanahan. He and Ashley, you and I talked about this. This is why everyone says he's a guru. He's not. Ashley, you and I talked about this. Every game, watch what he does. He will scheme for a player, not multiple players, a player. Look at when Kittle had his best year ever. It wasn't every game, though. But when he was targeted, he was good. Shanahan is not the kind of coach. That's why Tom Brady, Mahomes, and all these other guys are so good, and why no matter what quarterback we ever get, I don't care if we bring over Mahomes or bring Brady back, Joe Montana, whoever, they will never be as good because Shanahan refuses. Shanahan refuses to allow the quarterback to pick a receiver that's open. He's always like, every practice, okay, down and out or down and in, whatever, always throw it to this person, no matter what. Well, that guy's wide open 40 yards down. I don't care. The play goes to this one. That's why Shanahan has limitations. He'll pick a scheme for a player for a game. And that's the problem. I mean, I love Aiyuk, but you might as well trade him. I would trade him to some Steelers since that's where everyone sees he's going. He won't get too many firsts. He'll go 2 seconds and a third in 2026. So you can make your players. You might as well get the money while you can because Shanahan won't use. I'm just saying, Ashley, but they won't use him for what he's good for. That's where the problem is. He'll keep him on the bench so no one else has this talented guy, but then he won't use him. And that's why I'm getting tired of it. We have a lot of players. You know what I mean? I don't mean actually sitting on a bench, but I mean, if he was on the Steelers, if he was with Mahomes, hell, almost every game he'd have like 7-8 passes. Where with Shanahan, it's like, oh, well, no, we're scheming for Christian McCaffrey this game. Okay, now we want Jennings next game. No, we got to use the players for what we have. And you guys keep talking about it and you guys keep hearing it, but you guys don't seem, I guess, grasp what you're saying is Shanahan does. He picks a player who he's favorite with for that week because maybe in practice he was happy with him, so that's the guy he gets the ball with. And I don't care if he's a rookie or not. If he's that good, you play the guy and you put him out in the field. So he got mad at Aiyuk and he had to sit on the bench for a year. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's like telling Michael Jordan, hey, sit on the bench because you made me mad during practice for a year. That's stupid. And that's how the problem with Shanahan. He won't fucking get out of his own ego. I'm sorry, but that was it. And that's how it just... But now my 2 cents.
I agree. I think the main question, the main debate should be who has the better mullet, me or your dad. That's the main question. Like my mullet's getting there.
I have all my hair. I was going to donate it to 2 of my friends' parents who needed hair, but they both ended up liking wigs. So now I have like about maybe, I don't know where my camera is, about that much more, and I can donate it to Kids for Cancer. So we'll go back to my military haircut. I don't know how you women deal with hair this long. No, it's going back to my military haircut, and that's where I'm living my life. But
that's awesome.
So, but anyway, that was my 2 cents. I'll go back to letting you guys jack your jaws, okay? I'll listen to the show anyway, and I'll still do some critiques because that's me. Okay, guys.
I love you.
Enjoy.
I hope you're feeling better.
Love you.
Hope you're feeling better.
Oh, I am now. I am. Thank you.
Bye. So I feel like that was just a Shanahan criticism. I don't know if that.
Which he's right. He's honestly like to be honest, it when we look at Shanahan, right? Like he's a great play caller. But I think the issue is, and I'm gonna talk about it later on the show with Jay Harp, who might have a different opinion on it. But I feel like Shanahan gets too one-dimensional at times, and I feel like he sticks either sticks to the run not long enough, or he sticks to it a little too long. Like in the NFL, like this league has became a pass-happy league. And I think going away from Kyle Juszczyk and going towards a more Jawan Jennings role, so 11 personnel or a 12 personnel with another tight end on the field, which kind of sounds like they want to go another tight end on the field.
Yeah.
I think that's the way the Niners should go, because out of those personnels, you could be a little more pass happy. You could trust your quarterback a little more. And I think that's the thing with Kyle Shanahan, where he focuses on and he hones in on one player from that offense. Like the game plan is to attack, for example, certain linebacker, right? Blake Martinez, when we were playing the Packers for a good while.
Yeah.
Circle Blake Martinez, and all he would do is pick on Blake Martinez all game. But the thing is, though, is when you have great defensive coordinators who could adjust, right?
Yeah, they'll see that and they'll change it. And you saw that a lot with the 49ers, that second quarter, or that third quarter, sorry, out of the second half. A lot of times, especially going against better teams, that's when they would start to pull away. If you remember, like the Rams game, the Chiefs game, stuff like that, it's that second half once the defensive coordinator has gotten like a feel for what Shanahan is trying to do. If they're going up against a good defense, they've been able to then make an adjustment and really like create separation. Even in that Bengals game, remember, it wasn't like a dominating game all game. It's that second half that it like really started, like the other team pulls away when that's happening.
I think that's the biggest issue with Kyle right now, and that I've noticed for the past couple of years.
Yeah. So really quickly, I want to say, because some people like agreed. JM 617 said he went away from Debo against the Rams in the fourth quarter as well. Yeah, so Kyle has multiple examples of in the most important game of his career where he's gone away from his star. I don't know why. I don't know if he's trying to be clever. Like, does he? Because I know he's talked about the way he calls offense is by anticipating what the defensive coordinator is going to. He's talked, I know in that coach podcast that he did with Sean McVay, he talked a lot about his defensive background and how like that's how he runs his offense, is kind of trying to anticipate defense. So maybe in his head, he's being clever and he's like, well, the defensive coordinator is going to assume I'm going to my best player, so I'm going to not go to my best player to trick him. Now, I don't think that the odds have worked out in his favor in those situations. And then Al Bundy, maybe coming to Kyle Shanahan's defense, says every team does that. They call a play for a specific player. Now, I think what my dad's point is, and the only reason I feel like I can speak for him is just because we've had this conversation a lot, is I think I agree. Each play is for, you have a second and third option. But I think what my dad is saying, or I'll speak for myself, I notice a pattern with Shanahan is actually like there's entire games where it feels like the objective is to only get Christian McCaffrey the ball. He's the only player that they're trying to get involved. Happened similarly with Debo. This is going to be a Debo game. Only Debo.
And you get that feel in the first quarter usually.
Yeah. Kind of which player is going to be most utilized. And I feel like last year, some of their most successful games were games where they did spread the ball around more and they had multiple, throws to Debo, multiple throws to George Kittle, multiple throws to Brandon Aiyuk. They ran Christian McCaffrey. They threw Christian McCaffrey the ball. They spread the ball out. They, hit Jawan Jennings here and there. Really utilizing, like, right now, what I was saying earlier is that it makes sense that they have all these stars on the team because they can, unlike other teams, afford to have such great offensive players. Well, they're acting like they don't in most games. In most games, they ice out at least 2 or 3 of their players and focus on 1 to 2 players all game. And I think if they could, if Kyle Shanahan wanted to actually spread the ball around each game, that would really cause struggles for opposing defensive coordinators and quarterbacks, more so than if they were able to get a feel for, hey, this is going to be a BA game, just make sure to cover him. And Britton, somehow Kyle Shanahan forgets that George Kittle's on the team and he gets 1 target. Same thing. Oh, okay, we're just going to go multiple games only throwing the ball and running the ball with Christian McCaffrey. I remember last year on like Twitter, I feel like there were multiple games where I was like, does Kyle Shanahan know that he has different offensive players besides Christian McCaffrey? Because I felt like his game plan for at least the beginning half of this entire season was like, get the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands. Get the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands. Christian McCaffrey's an excellent player, but one, I don't know how many years you can do that without causing injury to Christian McCaffrey. And two, why are you paying a guy like Deebo Samuel? I want them to pay Aiyuk, but Aiyuk isn't worth the money if every game for 10 games out of the regular season, they're just throwing and running the ball with Christian McCaffrey and barely targeting Brandon Aiyuk. I remember there was a big drama with content creators about Aiyuk not having that many touchdowns earlier on in the year and, whether or not he was efficient or not. And obviously now in hindsight, and I think even then, people could say, no, with his opportunity, Brandon Aiyuk is extremely efficient. He has top 5 numbers, even though he does not have anywhere close to the amount of targets that most people or most of the wide receivers around the league have. However, I do kind of understand, why did he not have that many touchdowns? Because they were on a mission to make sure that every single touchdown that this team made was done by Christian McCaffrey so he could break some record. I'm happy that Kyle Shanahan wants to break a record. And if Christian McCaffrey, if they had only Brandon Aiyuk and only Christian McCaffrey on the team and everyone else was more of a B-level player, then I can kind of understand. But right now they have multiple guys who, if given the amount of targets, they could be a number 1 guy. I still think George Kittle could go to a different team and be the number 1 guy on a team. I think that Deebo Samuel, if he was in shape, could do that. Christian McCaffrey, we saw him do that last year. Will he get injured this year? I don't want to predict injury, but running back is hard. And BA, I think there's no question, we wouldn't, as fans and the team would never do this, but if BA was on the Chiefs, he'd be, blowing Tyreek Hill's numbers out of the water.
Probably.
So, yeah.
And I think,
just if you extrapolate what he's been able to do with so many less opportunities. Now, my problem is just I don't anticipate Kyle Shanahan changing that much, but I still do think even if Kyle Shanahan doesn't make an adjustment this season, I still think paying Brandon Aiyuk is worth it. 1, they can lower his cap hit this year. 2, I do think that they're going to move on from Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, and then potentially we'll see what's going to happen with Christian McCaffrey, not maybe in the 25 season, but even after that. So I could see BA really being that number 1 option when they do have to narrow their team down because they are paying Brock Purdy, which seems like they're going to do. So I still think, even if not next year, I still think it's worth it to pay BA now because I think that he will be the guy getting the most targets at some point on this team.
And I think when you look at it, so Kyle does get essentially a one-dimensional way. He does go to that player over and over and over and over again. And I think what's interesting about Kyle is he has so many playmakers. This is the opportunity to use those kind of guys. Now, for me, the biggest issue is not passing the ball as much, right? I know the goal, and there is an opportunity to go through and win by rushing 40 attempts, right? There is a statistic that shows if you hit that 40 attempt mark, you're more likely to win. Well, that's also because of, it's not necessarily
that's
because
like a Jimmy G offense.
And I think that's the issue, right? Kyle understands that statistic is actually highly favored. The more, if you run the ball 40 times, you're likely to win a game. And that's for anyone in the NFL, not just the Niners offense, right? It's that is a legit statistic that he looks at and he talks about, right? We also saw Brandon Aiyuk talk about how that play was always going to Jawan Jennings no matter what. The issue isn't about whether Kyle Shanahan should be throwing the ball. We know he needs to throw the ball more, and it's a fact that he needs to throw the ball more.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is just because you predict the defense is going to do something, you don't go towards Jennings, right? You truly have to trust your best playmakers in those situations. For me, it's kind of, the Niners could be like the Golden State Warriors when they had Kevin Durant. You couldn't guard them. Essentially, you could not guard them. Now, if the Niners had Steph Curry, KD, Klay Thompson, and all these dudes on their team, right? But Steph Curry went ISO ball. He went one-on-one every possession like James Harden, right? James Harden's teams that he's had, and then, I know it's a comparison, but it's not a basketball to football.
I like it.
If James Harden was to actually play within an offense, his teams would always be much better. But instead, he goes one-on-one so much that his teams aren't good versus Steph Curry with the Warriors. He likes to play within the offense. He doesn't like to go one-on-one, and it's allowed his teams to be so much better. And I think the same goes to the Niners. If you go through and you spread the ball
And
around
that's something
to
that people
everyone,
talk about with the Warriors often, right? Is how selfless those guys are. That they
and I think
like to
that's the issue right now.
involve everyone. That is, I really like that. And while you were saying that, I wanted to pull up because this kind of supports your comments. You have to trust your best guys in the most important moments. It's not hard, but Kyle makes it that way. And then I will say I wanted to push back on my dad here. That's because Casey uses all three players to the fullest, as where Kyle didn't. Fact, I will say I think that Casey like pretty much only utilizes Travis Kelce. Like they obviously get other people involved, but they don't have the same amount of weapons, so I don't think it's like an equal comparison. You know what I mean?
And I think
can
you bring up Niner Gang's last comment real quick?
Yes, this one.
Yeah. So in that, this
The
is
O-line
also
doesn't allow BA to run his route and get open as the fourth option. I think you I don't want to speak for you, but I agree. And I think that is a huge reason why there's multiple things. One, I think they need to bolster their offensive line so that if Brock Purdy is in a situation where he needs to get to his fourth option, he can. However, I think while we're criticizing Kyle Shanahan, I think the criticism should actually be the BA shouldn't be the fourth option. He should be the first option. Like, get him, like, instead of making Brock Purdy check multiple people who are supposed to be open, being like, oh, okay, Christian McCaffrey, he's actually not open. Oh, Debo, he's not open. Oh, okay, now let me look for BA. Instead, make BA be the first person you look for. More
and
often.
I think that's the issue, right? Like, and I was going to say, like, not necessarily is the O-line the issue, right? Like, that is an issue separate from Brandon Aiyuk being your fourth option. Brandon Aiyuk is not a better route runner or a better receiver than Debo Samuel. Now, I get George Kittle being up there as a top 1 or 2 because he's a great route runner. He's that kind of a tight end. But your running back should also not be one of the first reads. Like, if we're being honest, like, it should not be one of the first reads. That's essentially a lot of offenses use that running back as a safety blanket, as a route that is going to beat a certain coverage if it changes post snap.
McCaffrey should be like a dump off, like in case BA didn't get up. Like, BA should be like number one target. Oh, okay, he's not open. I can dump it off to Christian McCaffrey. Instead, this system is set up opposite, where Brock Purdy is told to look at Christian McCaffrey first, then be like, okay, Christian McCaffrey's not open, so now I will try to throw the ball down the field to BA. Oh, okay, shit, my offensive line is breaking down. It's like, well,
yeah, and I think
have him be the first. Like, instead of having a guy like Christian McCaffrey always being, the first or second option, instead of having Debo always be the first or second option, make BA the first or second option more. That's something that Kyle Shanahan could change regardless of his offensive line or not. Now, separately,
who was the first read in the Super Bowl? Who was the first read during the Super Bowl? All Super Bowl?
Fucking
during key
Jawan
situations?
Bennett.
It was actually Debo for a majority of the game.
The
guy who can't beat man coverage.
The number one option. He wasn't getting open, and then for some reason Jennings was like the safety blanket. That game made no sense.
And I think that's just a simple fix, right? Like, make Brandon Aiyuk your first read in a lot more things. You could call those plays that gives Brandon Aiyuk the opportunity to. That's not necessarily gonna change the offense, right? But what it's gonna do is gonna give Brandon Aiyuk those extra 4 targets a game, extra 2-3 targets a game. So now from going from 4 targets, he's getting 7 to 10 targets a game. Like, that's essentially what the Niners could do by making Brandon Aiyuk your focal point in the passing game. And I think that's what they got to do. And that's why they truly should play Brandon Aiyuk number 1 money. Like, this team, if the Niners don't have a receiver 1, they are screwed. Because if we're going down the line of receivers on the roster, we could even throw in a rookie in there. I mean, you can name whatever rookie you want. Debo, not a good route runner. And we've known this since he had his breakout seasons. He's not a great route runner. He's a wide back. He called himself that. He's like that hybrid role.
Yeah.
Our next receiver, Jawan Jennings after Brandon Aiyuk and Debo.
He's more of a slow.
He's more of like he could create
He
separation.
can be physical. He can be physical, but he's not going to run down the field and catch him. Like, he can't do what BA can do.
He could do it, but not as elite. Like, he could create separation and get open, but it's not going to be as pretty. And he's going to win more contested balls. He's going to win in other ways.
And this isn't to like bash on Jennings, but I feel like a lot of times he gets open. Like, I feel like Jawan Jennings' ability to get open says less about his ability than Brandon Aiyuk does, because people aren't really looking for Jennings. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like people are double teaming Debo and BA, where when it comes to Jennings, a lot of times he's getting open because he's just like getting forgotten about, or not forgotten about, but because there are so many weapons on the teams, they have to kind of decide who they're going to prioritize, and that guy's usually not Jennings.
And I think so. Like, even we're going down the line, so like your number 3 receiver, your true number receiver, right? Now this is not including Kittle, because Kittle's your tight end. Like, that's I'm going receivers, not. So I'm going to your next receiver, Chris Conley, 31 years old. You're gonna trust a 31-year-old receiver to lead you to the Super Bowl?
Did you see? Was that him today that was on Twitter, and he was like, "Real dogs move in silence," and then Gianmarco Lenore like quote tweeted him and was like, "Shut up, then." Was that him, or was that someone else?
I think that was Willie Snead. I think
Oh,
I did
okay.
see it. I think it was Willie Snead.
There you go.
But just looking at it, like receivers, right? The next guy on the list, obviously,
Do you think
Chris
the
Conley
49ers
was.
are going to draft a receiver? What?
They
Okay,
should.
actually, let me rephrase. I think that they'll draft a receiver, especially if they move on from Brandon Aiyuk and they have, like, let's say they have a trade during the draft. I know Mike Silver talked with Rob Stats Guerrera and like was hardcore hinting at them doing a trade in the middle of the draft, and said that the 49ers.
Who did?
Mike Silver.
Oh, he was on with, and he said that they're for sure going receiver.
He just said that like he like reiterated multiple times that the 49ers would be more than open to trading Aiyuk during the draft. And then
I think after you get past 17, which is the Jags, if he's not moved, they're not moving him. There's no way in this world you move Brandon Aiyuk for a 2nd-round pick thinking you're going to get back to the Super Bowl this year. If you're truly all in, you're not moving Brandon Aiyuk. And that's why I don't get why people are looking at it like, oh, Brandon Aiyuk is going to get moved. If you're not getting a top 15 pick where you could truly replace Brandon Aiyuk,
have an immediate day one starter.
And not even that, you're not even replacing Aiyuk, because if you replace Aiyuk with that position, like for example, let's say the Niners, Niners do trade.
You'd have to get like an offensive lineman and then get Aiyuk in like the 2nd round or something. Get a replacement
at 31. Like, you would have to do the offensive lineman at 15 or 17, whatever draft pick, right? This is hypothetical. And then at 31, you got to get a receiver. And at that spot, you're not gonna get Brandon Aiyuk, right? Like, you're gonna get a guy who's not polished. He's gonna come in year 1. He's gonna struggle in Kyle's offense.
Kyle's gonna sit him because he's not gonna let a guy like that start.
The reality is it's if you're truly trying to go back to the Super Bowl, you're doing it with Brandon Aiyuk. Now, that's whether Brandon Aiyuk plays on his 5th-year option, whether Aiyuk is extended. Brandon Aiyuk will be on this team this year, and I'm like 95, almost 100% sure he will, just because the Niners want to try to get back to that championship mentality and get to the Super Bowl. So for me, I know Mike Silver said that, but I think you could take a guy in like the 2nd round or at 31. Like, you could truly take a receiver earlier than expected if an offensive lineman isn't there that you truly love. Because what really that does is,
I wanted to agree. I feel like I really agree with this. And this is kind of the theme of what I'm saying with Brock Purdy being on his rookie deal and everything, and with just this core being aging veterans. I agree that I feel like the 49ers put themselves in a do or die position. They have to go all in again. And I would be extremely disappointed if they moved off of Brandon Aiyuk. And I know there's some pushback, like they didn't win the Super Bowl with Aiyuk, so why is it so important to keep them? I just don't think that they get back there without Aiyuk. I don't think that there's any way that they draft a guy who can replace his production, whether or not that's touches or just the fact that he is even if he wasn't getting the ball, he's taking resources and helping other guys get open in the same way that I was just saying, like, no one is giving resources to Jawan Jennings. If they draft a guy, like, there's no guarantee that that guy is going to be watched the way that BA was watched. And that makes it harder for Christian McCaffrey, for Deebo Samuel, for whoever else they would be opening those targets up to. And then just because I don't know if this is like a rumor or something, but I don't want people to be bashing Aiyuk for no reason. William Roberts says Aiyuk is asking for too much, 30 million, and he hasn't produced enough to be wanting that much. We can draft a receiver that is better than Aiyuk and cheaper. Addressing the latter half of your question, I don't think it's easy to draft a receiver that's going to be better or cheaper. I agree that they could draft a receiver, and I do think that receivers are becoming more like running backs, where they can be we're seeing a lot of teams draft rookie receivers who end up being really good. However, I don't think that a rookie is going to be starting on this a rookie wide receiver specifically is going to be starting on this team. Kyle Shanahan and the other wide receivers themselves have both agreed that Kyle Shanahan has unrealistic standards for his wide receivers because that was the position he played. And then to address but you could draft a guy and then maybe get the ball more to Kittle, more to Deebo, more to Christian McCaffrey. Like, just because you draft a receiver doesn't mean that receiver has to do what Aiyuk did if you're willing to change your system. But my thing is, it's just like a horrible message to send to people
in the locker room.
But yeah, like a guy, like we drafted a guy. He did everything right. He outplayed his draft status. He overcame woes that we put him in. He's been elite with the production or with the opportunity he's been given. I think that's a horrible message to send. But really, most importantly, the reason I brought this comment up was there's no found. Aiyuk has not at all ever came out and said that he wants $30 million. No agent has came out and said that. I don't know where you heard that, but I just think during these contract years, people can bash players unnecessarily. So I want to kind of nip that rumor in the bed right in the head right now. I don't think Aiyuk is asking for that. He's definitely not going to get that, but there's no credible source that is put out that Aiyuk is asking for that. So I don't think it's fair to put that on him.
And I would say it's at what pick do you draft a better receiver than Aiyuk? Like, he's going to be cheaper. But we're also talking about an all-pro receiver. Like, you don't just come into the NFL as a receiver and become an all-pro. Like, Brandon Aiyuk didn't even do that. Like, it took him years to get to where he is. He's an all-pro receiver. He's ascending. We've seen what he could do on limited touches, like limited targets. So, for me, I definitely think the Niners should pay Brandon Aiyuk. I think they should evolve their offense. I believe this is a call-in show, right, Ashley?
It was going to be a call-in show. Yeah, if you want.
I'm headed out right now. I'm headed out right now. So, if they want to start calling in,
is the thing that I just put in the chat. That's the way that they would call in, right?
Yeah, they would just click on it and then.
Perfect.
But thanks, Ashley, for having me on. I know you were going to go solo and you're going to do a call in, but I do agree with you. I do think it sends a bad message to the players in the locker room. I think Brandon Aiyuk is ascending upwards. I think he has the potential to be even better than what he was this year if we give him more targets.
Yep.
I think you could do so by evolving your offense. And when you guys are done with this show,
right here,
I'll be talking about it on my show. So if they wanted to follow back and watch on Clutch Gene Sports, but everyone, make sure you guys stay here, hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you guys run up Ashley's subscribers. Thanks, Ashley, for having me on. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Marco. Everyone, please make sure to go like and subscribe to, really quickly, Marco's channel, Clutch Gene Sports. Like I said,
do it after the show. Don't leave.
Yes, this is our time. But yeah, make sure to do that after and to tune into his show. Thank you so much, Marco, for helping me out here. I appreciate it. And then we'll be back on Friday.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Later.
Bye. Okay, and then I see Mr. Corey. Can you show me your face or something? Because I think that we're supposed to do that. Because I know that was it Jesse got his channel canceled. So this is a call-in show, but no one be weird. But I don't think anyone's gonna be weird. But I'm just giving a shout out because I think Jesse's channel got like taken down because people were weird. But hi, Mr. Corey. I see you in the chat. How you doing?
How are you? Ignore my hair, please.
No worries. No worries. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Are you gonna let me know what you think about Brandon Aiyuk, or you have some Kyle Shanahan criticism for me?
Well, I was criticizing Kyle, and I was saying that the more people criticize him, is the more he's going to double down and refuse to change because Jed York gave him all the authority because Jed York was desperate. So he doesn't answer to anybody.
Can I ask you a question on that? Why
Yes.
do you think it's more of a personality thing with Jed York? Because I understand him being desperate when they got Kyle Shanahan, coming right off the Chip Kelly years, like kind of having this dark time for the 49ers fan base, not really showing up. But right now, I feel like if they wanted to get a new coach, there would be coaches that would be lining up to coach a team like this with even with Brock Purdy or with the ability to draft more. I mean, they have multiple stars. I think that this is a good, like, they've been really successful. I think this is a good team that coaches would want to take over. And in the Orlando owners meeting, Jed York basically said that he wants Kyle Shanahan to be the coach for the next 10 years. And when asked, like, what if he doesn't win a Super Bowl? He said, we've had lots of success and I believe that he'll get it at some point, basically giving Kyle Shanahan a blank check and unlimited time as long as at some point he gets it done. Why is he still desperate?
Because you might have touched on it with his personality, because maybe he doesn't want to go through the process again of trying to find, you get that comfortable pair of shoes, you get that favorite restaurant, and people keep saying, hey, why don't you try out that restaurant up the street? And you say, okay. And then when you're hungry, you go back to the same restaurant again. You're like, I don't feel like experimenting.
I know what I'm going to get here.
Yeah, he went through, this has to be an NFL record, Ashley, 4 years in a row, 4 different head coaches. Harbaugh's last year, Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly, then Kyle Shanahan. And I think that it's been, 7 years? And it doesn't feel that long. So that means he would have to get back in and go back to interviewing and go back to and then he's going to have to probably do the same thing that he did to Kyle. He doesn't have any cachet like his uncle. So the next coach, he would have to make the same promise. Okay, you can have control of the roster. Okay, you can do this. Okay, you can do that. And Kyle's already been there. And even though we have criticisms of him and John Lynch inherited a you-know-what show. They had 5 good players: DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Jaquiski Tartt, Jimmy Ward, and probably 2 others. They blew it up, rebuilt it in their image, and they were in the Super Bowl, not the playoffs, the Super Bowl in year 3.
And a year early even. I remember they had talked about that they had kind of drew up a game plan, and they thought that they wouldn't even get there until the following year.
And they just went to the Super Bowl again. And in between them, they've been, so in 7 years, this is going to be year number 8, 2024. They've been to 4 NFC championship games and 2 Super Bowls. So that's what Jed is kind of saying, to be fair to him. It's like, okay, we haven't won it, but there's 31 other teams outside of Kansas City that would love to be struggling like this. I mean, look at the Carolina Panthers. I mean, they probably have, I'm the most hardcore football fan, and right now I couldn't name you 5 players that play for the Panthers.
I know. I think of Brian Burns, and now he's on the Giants, right?
That's right. And I can't pronounce the offensive lineman's name because it's some African name, but I do know him and Bryce Young, of course, and
they also traded their good.
Yeah, that's about it. And it's like, who wouldn't love, once the emotion dies down? And I'm a Michigan Wolverine fan, so I almost got both teams in the same season to win the title. I got the national title with Michigan, and then the Niners, who are my favorite team over anybody. I'm a Detroit Piston fan in the NBA. They were right there in overtime. Pardon me?
Where are you based out of?
Ohio.
Oh, okay. How did you become a 49er fan?
Because I grew up in Atlanta, And back then, I spent some of my childhood growing up in Atlanta. And back then, the Atlanta Falcons and the 49ers, they're in the same division, as silly as that may sound. And yeah, the 49ers used to come to Atlanta. And I like the color red, if that makes sense. And that was then I come back to Ohio. Yeah. And then when I came back to Ohio, I was even bigger 49er fan because football is way bigger here in Ohio than it is in Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, Atlanta, Georgia is more SEC country, college football, because, the Falcons historically have been pathetic. So,
in Atlanta, there's like more people that go to the Georgia games than go to.
Oh, it's not even close. That's just like Ohio. Okay, Ohio State went to the national championship in NCAA basketball when Greg Oden played there, and you could barely find anybody talking about it. An Ohio State preseason, or not preseason, spring game, just spring game. It will put 100,000 people in that stadium, a spring game, to watch a scrimmage. It's light, and I mean the Pro Football Hall of Fame is here. It's in Ohio. This is the
college football. I feel like the games are always so like they're not competitive enough. I don't understand.
Well,
you know what I mean?
They're not as competitive as NFL games because you can just get as many 5-star recruits.
Way better than the other, I feel like.
Pardon me?
I feel like one team is always way better than the other.
Well, it's starting to change. The NIL money is changing that because guys are going to who's going to pay me. So they'll go to Boise State. If Boise State's paying the money and tell USC, you ain't offer enough money. That's actually what made Michigan winning the national title more impressive because they don't pay the NIL money up front. They pay it after you've already been in their system, and they pay it for you to stay. Blake Corum, their best offensive player, he was at Michigan 5 years because they gave him NIL money to stay and win a national title. Did the same with their offensive linemen. Ohio State, they're paying for the elite recruits to come through the front door. That's why it's more impressive that Michigan keeps beating them. And then you go watch the NFL draft, you're going to hear more Ohio State players called in this first round than you are Michigan players. But Michigan has had more of a team culture, and they have more of like paid mercenaries now because of this NIL money. So yeah, I've been a Niner fan a long time without showing my age. And this one hurt because I mean the one in 2019 hurt too, but it seemed like this one hurt way more because it should have been over at halftime. And I know it's never really over at halftime with a player like Mahomes, but it should have been 21-3 bare minimum at halftime.
They had like their opportunity that they just did not capitalize on or take.
And we got to be truthful, Ashley. We probably got a little karma because we got lucky against Green Bay.
Helmet.
Yeah, we got lucky against Green Bay. We got lucky against Detroit. And then against Kansas City got all the luck. They got every break. They fumbled 7 times. They recovered 6 of them. The ball bouncing off Darrell Luter Jr.'s foot. Brandon Aiyuk wide open in the back of the end zone, and the play is to go to Juwan Jennings, and then Spencer Burford blocks the wrong person, and Chris Jones just you could just like it's like I have people that hate the Niners. I mean, literally.
Do you think they're gonna go offensive line first round then? Really quick, because I'm gonna get to Niner gang, so I want to.
Okay, really quick, I do because I think it's just so much pounding on the table now that
do you think they'll trade up or they'll pick whoever
yes. I don't think they're going to sit at 31 because I think they realize you're not going to get an impactful offensive tackle.
To get the 9th best offensive line.
Yeah, you Kingsley Sumatea. I mean, yeah, that's nice, but no, I really think they're going to go up. I think they're going to try for the kid from Oregon State. I just think they really like him. I think they got a deal probably worked out with somebody. You can't 11 picks. Do you know, even an egomaniac like Kyle, who answers to no one, would get just crushed, Ashley, to sit on 11 picks. 11 people are not making this roster. You have to come out of this draft.
Running back? You think they'll draft a running
Yes,
back?
yes.
In the later rounds, but at some
Yes,
point.
and like I joked on somebody's post the other day, I think it was David Lombardi. I said that guy can get it, wherever he comes from, he can get a nice warm seat and watch Christian McCaffrey get every catch right beside every carry right along Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell, because it was just macabre the way Kyle just ran him into the ground when he had two good running backs. I was at the Cleveland game, the Cleveland 49ers game, on this.
That sucks. That sucks.
I know. And being a Michigan fan, and Jake Moody is from Michigan, and he missed that kick. So imagine that's like a double whammy. And I was on the 50-yard line, Ashley, in row 6 behind Cleveland's bench because my cousin's a Browns fan. He got the tickets. I could have sneezed on Myles Garrett. I could have sneezed on the players. That's how close I was. And Jordan Mason, just before he got hurt, they were stuffing Christian McCaffrey, stuffing him. And Jordan Mason, he's just a different, he's running all over them Browns players.
So fierce.
Just wouldn't, I understand the connection with Christian McCaffrey.
For him just to sit right over there on the bench.
It Ashley, it's like they kept asking me, who is that guy? I said, that's Jordan Mason. And I said, the fact that we got him undrafted and he just wouldn't run him enough. I mean, what was wrong with him getting 20 carries in a game like that? Oh, I know. He fumbled in the preseason. So I put in the comments while y'all were talking, and then I know you got to get to somebody else. So I won't try to take up all your time. Kyle, and look, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be like your father. I'm not criticizing that. However, it's like, can't you take the good from your dad and bring it into 2024? He is literally, it's like they said, as young as he is, it's almost like he's a 70-year-old guy from the 80s coaching this team. He won't change. He's stubborn. He's addicted to running the ball 50 times in a pass-happy league. He can't build an offensive line. He thinks it's his dad's era, and he's just going to be like, I just want to be like my dad.
Even Mike Silver said, like, and I'm not against Brock Purdy, but even Mike Silver said a big reason that they are going to pay Brock Purdy is just because Kyle doesn't want to do any more scouting for QBs.
Yeah, he lucked into Brock Purdy.
The guy who he thinks is good enough, doesn't have to be the best, but just good enough. He's like, okay, I don't have to teach him anymore. I just want to keep things the same.
Yeah, it's because what quarterback has he ever taught anything? He didn't want to scout Mahomes. And remember, he said C.J. Beathard. He traded up for C.J. Beathard in the 3rd round and said he was the best quarterback in that draft. He said Colton McKivitz would have been the starting left tackle had they not been able to trade for Trent Williams.
I have a closing question for you. Do you think that Kyle Shanahan will ever win a Super Bowl in his career with the 49ers or not?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I honestly believe that. I believe the football gods, and I know everybody's seen the Andy Reid comparisons, and the Andy Reid comparisons are very real. Andy Reid was being called everything Kyle Shanahan is now until he lucked into Patrick Mahomes, and he had Donovan McNabb and didn't win. He had Terrell Owens after he didn't win. He lost to the Patriots. He went to 1,000 NFC championship games and kept losing. I honestly think Kyle is his own biggest enemy, and he's never going to come out on camera to us and say, yeah, but behind closed doors, I think you've seen it in the Super Bowl when he went for it. What was that, on 4th down, and we scored? That old Kyle would have just punt like he did in the NFC championship game when Jaquaski Tart dropped in. He should have went for it, but he had Garoppolo, who he didn't trust. Now he had Brock Purdy, and he went for it, and we scored. that is a little piece of evolution, and as soon as he gets out of his own way, yes, I do believe he's going to win. It's going to be sad that some of these guys probably won't be there to enjoy it when it happens. Yeah. Like, DeForest Buckner's long gone now. Eric Armstead's gone. Jimmy Ward, my last favorite 49er. I don't know who your favorite 49er is. I don't currently have one because my last one was DJ Jones. And, while I wanted to win this Super Bowl, don't get me wrong, it's like, man, would have won the Super Bowl and DJ Jones wouldn't have been a part of it, and Joe Staley wouldn't have been a part of it, and Jimmy Ward wouldn't have been a part of it. It's like Tashawn Gibson would have got a ring that Jimmy Ward should have got. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I do think he's going to win one, and I hope it's this season, because like we all figure, somebody we all like is not going to be on this team when the 2025 season kicks off. Whether it's Deebo Samuel, and I'm thinking it either Deebo Samuel or George Kittle. And if I had to pick, and I'll leave you with that because I know you got to get somebody else on here. Yeah. I'm picking George Kittle all day over Deebo Samuel. All day. George Kittle is an elite offensive tackle, and he's an elite wide receiver. And name anybody else in the league like that. And it's not Travis Kelce either, because he's not an elite offensive tackle.
I agree with that. I think that Kittle has had a little bit of a resurgence under Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kittle was like so Team Jimmy when you're like, your career looked pretty much over. And now
isn't that crazy? Even when he set even his best season, which was one of the best seasons all time for a tight end in 2018, when he set the NFL record for most receiving yards by a tight end, he did that with Nick Mullins the majority of the year. He only had Garoppolo for like a game and a half. And his career high in touchdown receptions was not this past season, but the season before that with 11. Now he just had his second first team All-Pro season. And this dude just kept Jimmy this, Jimmy that, Jimmy this. And the loyalty was never returned, Ashley. Garoppolo would go up to that podium. Remember the Tennessee game?
You're like, I didn't do it. We suck, but I did not do it.
Kittle ran the wrong route. And it's like, why do y'all love this guy so much? He takes no responsibility. He'll throw you up under the bus. And when the season's over, he's not returning any of your calls or texts. I don't get it. And they just constantly disrespected Trey Lance. I mean, my goodness, in favor of Garoppolo. And I get it. He's been in there in the trenches with them. And, but yeah, he's had a resurgence. And something was wrong with him in the Super Bowl that we didn't know about. Remember, they were masking.
He ended up having surgery, right? He ended up having core surgery, and I know that he had like calf tightness and shoulder tightness, but I don't think there was anything mentioned about his core until after the surgery was over, after the season.
And then, like I said in the comments, he because they won't address this offensive line. When you get into the playoffs, the reason his numbers don't look as dominant as they should when it comes playoff time is because in the playoffs, they're better teams and your offensive line stinks on the right side. So he has to stay in and play tackle. He can't go out and be like Travis Kelce. He's got to stay in and block all the time. So Ashley, if they sit at 31, they're telling you, nah, it's business as usual. We're going to go into the fourth round. Look at the middle to the right side of the line. It's an undrafted journeyman in Jake Brendel, who didn't start till he was 30, and 2 fourth-round draft picks. How you trotted that out and made it this far, and I get it. You can say, well, they got there. But it's the same thing that bites you in the butt when you get there. You can't block Chris Jones. And I get it. Maybe there's some all-pros that can't block Chris Jones. But you can't make it that easy with Jake Brendel, Burford. I like Feliciano, and that injury in the Super Bowl was underrated. His injury in the Super Bowl was underrated because you had to put Burford back in, who probably wouldn't be in the league other than the Niners. So if you can't get an offensive lineman in this draft, what draft? Ashley, what draft? This has about 7 or 8 offensive linemen that are going to go in the first round. You're back into the first round for the first time in 2 years. You're armed with 11 picks to trade up.
That's why I hope that they trade up. Like I've even heard people say, "Oh, well, like they could trade back." I'm like, you don't give away.
Are you ridiculous? That's ridiculous.
3 years, and then freaking the 1 year you finally have a first round pick, end up.
That's ridiculous.
Back.
No.
Trade up. I could see them going. I think they need to target an offensive tackle. I understand. I think maybe some fans could be scared because some of the people they've traded up for, like Jalen Hurts.
I get it.
But, you know, I mean, they've made some bad decisions, but I think if it's for the right offensive tackle, I know I do a show with Tom, and he's a big fan of Mims. I've been kind of wary of Mims because Mims doesn't have that many starts.
Right.
I'm just like, I don't know, but Field Gates, is that how, I don't know if that's how you say his name.
Field Yates.
Yeah, he actually was talking about how Mims would be the perfect guy for the 49ers because he is a guy that, like, even if he needs a little more time, the 49ers have like a good enough offensive line to like play some regular season games together.
Yes.
Kind of do a Burford thing where they could
rotate him and Colton McKivitz in and out. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then hopefully by the time, because we expect the 49ers to be in the playoffs, by that time, you would hope that that guy could be a consistent starter. And then he also has that ability where he could take over on the left side a few years
in the future,
whenever Trent Williams wants to retire. Because right now, a lot of people, we're looking at that right side of the line and how bad it is. But eventually we're going to be screwed because we're also going to lose the left side of the line. So if they don't add, I think they need to get a guy high up on that priority list. But I'm going to let you go and bring on Niner Gang.
Okay. Nice talking to you. Yeah, I was going to say, would you be, even after all the offensive tackle, the D-line is, I think it's kind of suspect because outside of Bosa, you've got a journeyman in Malik, whatever his last name is, and you've got a 32-year-old hired gun in Leonard Floyd. Would you be super upset at Chop Robinson? Would you be?
So I've heard good things about him. I know Eric Crocker is actually pretty high on him and said that he could see the 49ers going and getting him. I mean, I want to say I'd be upset just because I feel like they targeted defense so much in free agency and they didn't make it a priority they didn't make offense or offensive line a priority in free agency, that to me they have to, with those higher round draft picks, go offensive line. I mean,
yes.
I also think like there's pretty good D tackles every year in the draft and in free agency. Where this is a one of a kind. Like there's not that many offensive tackles that come out in drafts. Like this is a special draft. So to me, you should take advantage of that. And then next year, if you need to
worry about the D line. Yes, absolutely. This has to be offensive tackle. And there's so many good ones, even if they don't know what they're doing. And outside of Aaron Banks, they don't know what they're doing when it comes to drafting offensive linemen. You could still look good because there's so many good tackles. Latham and Sims and Fuaga. And they need an offensive tackle. We will leave it at that so you can get the next person in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Corey. I appreciate you.
Yep, I appreciate you too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. Really quick, JM67 or 617 says Rams are done. I don't know if something happened or if you're just putting a statement out there. I've been pretty impressed with Sean McVay's ability for them to bounce back. And then William Roberts says Kittle needs to retire a 49er. I think that will depend on, I know they've done a lot of contract restructures with him, much like what they did with Eric Armstead. So I don't know how much his paycheck is going to be down the line, but if it is too expensive, I could see them moving off of him. But I could also see him being the type of player that maybe would be willing to take a pay cut at the end of his career to stay with the 49ers, because I know he has all his antics and whatever and can be kind of annoying in that way to some fans, but he does seem to take the 49ers like traditions really to heart. I know during Cowboys week, besides just like the shirt and stuff, he's really talked about like the history and really talked about how his freshman year on the team, his first year on the team, Kyle and John really instilled in him like that kind of brotherhood, the importance of the 49ers in the rich history that he has. I think guys like Kittle and Fred Warner, if possible, will want to retire as 49ers. Now, once again, I think it'll just kind of come up to how much money have they pushed down the line, because they might be in a situation where they're forced to move on from him like they were Armstead, just because like they're not going to pay George Kittle $25 million if they ended up, I think right now his contract is like 16 million or something, because I know tight ends kind of get screwed over in that way compared to wide receivers. But I think that will depend. But I, as a fan, would like that too, William. But I'm going to bring Niner Gang on. Niner Gang, it's been a long time. How you doing?
Good. How we doing today? Can you hear me?
I can hear you pretty good. Yeah, it was crackling for a second, but I think you're good.
Oh, I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my internet over here, but good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you doing? I have some questions for you.
Go for it. I'm ready. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Do you think that the 49ers are going to move on from Brandon Aiyuk at some point from now to draft day? Or do you think they're going to keep him and have him either A, pay on the 5th-year option, or B, extend him?
I think he's going to play on the 5th-year option.
I could see that.
And
do you think if they make him play on the 5th-year option that he will not be willing to re-sign at the end of it?
I would say that would all determine how the season turns out. If they make him play on his 5th-year option, his targets go up, he's more highlighted in the offense, so to speak. Stuff like that will play a factor into it. But I think ultimately, you can't really, if you're being honest with it, he's a better wide receiver than Debo. And the type of football Debo plays, he's got, a few more years if he's lucky in the league, if he continues to play the way he plays. So, and Brandon, the way he plays, he's going to be able to play a lot longer, I believe. So with that being said, I think he's going to play on the 5th-year option next year, this coming season. And after that, they'll trade Debo and they'll figure a way out to get Brandon to make him happy.
Okay. Do you think that at some point in Kyle Shanahan's career, with the 49ers or not with the 49ers, that he's going to win a Super Bowl?
To me, that's a two-part question, because it depends on if he accepts himself for who he really wants to be. And I know everybody thinks he wants to be a run-go-first guy, but I don't think that's what Kyle wants to do. I think Kyle wants to be a passing team. I mean, when he gets scared, what does he do? He goes straight to the passing game.
That's true. Like he gets away from the run in the big moments?
Immediately, in the beginning of the first quarter of the Super Bowl. There's plenty of time left. There's plenty of time to control the clock. That game was nowhere out of control, ever. And he got away from it.
Do you think that Brock Purdy is a guy that you feel confident going towards a more pass offense with? Or do you think that do you feel confident that if he wanted to make that transition, he could do that with a guy like Brock Purdy?
If you take care of that right side of the line and get someone to fill in for Trent, because Trent's going to miss some games, he does every year. Sustain that, because the key to Brock's success is limiting the amount of times he's getting sacked per game. Because nothing against Brock, he's not a big guy. We've seen quarterbacks get their arms hit. It was a fluke deal. Things happen. And when you got free rushers like Chris Jones running at you,
scary.
Yes,
scary. Do you think that they're going to go offensive line with their first round pick?
I think,
or do you think
if they don't, see, now that right there, that kind of goes back to the will Kyle Shanahan win the Super Bowl with the Niners? If he takes an O-line in the first round, I think he will. But if he doesn't take an O-line, which is our biggest need, if he does not take that, that just kind of tells me that he's not really evolving. He thinks what he has is right. Just this player, that play didn't go my way.
Yeah. He made that comment was that in Orlando, where he kind of talked about continuity with the offensive line and being happy with Colton McKivitz, and that was kind of scary.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that at all.
I don't want to hear that at all because I don't believe it, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because it is possible, keep those 5 guys playing together for multi-years in a row. In theory, yes, they should be better year 2. But in reality, it still doesn't change the fact that Colton's Colton, Banks is Banks, Brindle's Brindle. They are who they are. It's not a knock against them. My opinion.
Well, another thing is like Banks is going to be isn't 2024 Banks last season with the team unless they extend him.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And they're not confident in him because they just signed John Feliciano.
Really quickly, Mitchell and S says Kyle's going to run it back with the same O-line. They will draft defensive line if they don't trade back from 31. I don't think they'll trade back, but I'd love to ask your opinion. Do you think that they have a guy maybe in mind that they might be willing to trade up? I think I had it written down, but they traded up from 31 to 25 a couple years ago when they wanted to grab a guy. I could see them, if they were willing to combine their second and first round pick, maybe even getting as far up as like 20. Do you think that it would be worth it for them to go up and grab an offensive lineman? Or do you think it's smarter to kind of play the board and let whoever falls to you just take the best player available at that point?
The thing with Kyle is even if he goes up and say he gets a top 5 pick offensive line, is he going to let him play? He doesn't like to play.
I mean, I think it depends, right? I think the first 5 projected offensive linemen are guaranteed starters. But then if you get a guy like Mims, who does have all the traits and attributes, but hasn't played that much, I could see him redshirting a guy like that. And then I could see the fan base being furious because if you spend your first 2 picks on a guy that then is sitting on the bench, that for Colton McKivitz, that would be crazy.
I think that if they're going to trade up, it should be for an offensive lineman because you have all the other pieces on offense as far as that goes. I mean, you have your running backs, you have your wide receivers, you have your quarterback. You just don't have the right side of the line. That's it. Simply, that's it. And if you're all in, and you can get great players in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round for defense, to fulfill our needs on defense. This is an offensive-driven league, and he needs to come around to that and accept it. And if he does that, my opinion, and if we get an offensive line in the 1st round, that shows me, okay, they're all in. Because after this season, Niners are going to look way different next year. Way different.
Yeah. Now, would you be mad if they did cornerback? Because I do know that they're going to have, it's interesting. This team actually has a lot of needs coming up. Maybe not, I think going offensive line for this upcoming year, which I think they need to go all in for the last year of Brock's rookie contract, is most important. But then once you look past 2024, they need defensive linemen, they need cornerbacks, they need safeties. I even had written down, I ended up not talking about it, but the 49ers are rumored to be looking at Budda Baker, who I know he's been good, but I don't think that they should be going after. I think they need to be getting younger. I think that's why a big reason they should sign Aiyuk is their core needs to be Brock Purdy. If they're really going to pay him, then they need to start getting younger and having guys that can kind of ascend at the same time, instead of these guys who have already hit their peak and now are descending, trying to keep those guys also with the ascending players. It's choose a timeline. The Warriors kind of had this problem when they had, was that last year when they had their younger guys and they also had their older guys. And it was what are you trying to plan for the future? Or are you going all in? Because you can't really do both in the same year.
See, that's the thing, if they're going to go all in, they need to go all in because I just really feel, if they get Brock back next year, it's going to be a rough few years after that because it always is, in theory. And nothing against Brock. The only team that I've really seen.
You have to have the most elite quarterback, right? When you
Yes,
look at Super Bowl wins, it's either Patrick Mahomes or someone, of that caliber, an elite level QB, or it's a guy on the rookie deal. So once Brock Purdy, you have next year, and then after that, Brock Purdy better get way the hell better. And I'm not saying Brock Purdy's bad. I think he's good, but I think he's probably, tier 2, high, in between 15 and 8, you know what I mean? Level quarterback, which is good, but that's not in order to win a Super Bowl, you need like 4 through 1. So
See, and the thing with Brock is, I don't know if we'll ever really know how good he actually can be, because
until
Kyle
you see
Shanahan's
him with
so
another team.
controlling. He's so controlling.
Yeah.
I mean, you see when Brock first came in and played last season, you know, the Dolphins, and after that, when he very first came in and played as you know, on his true rookie year, he was kind of playing backyard football, you know, getting away. He would go to the podium and say stuff like, you know, I can't do that, you know, and I read through it and I kind of get it. Like Kyle Shanahan went to him and said, dude, don't do that again. Stick to the play. That's it. No more, no less. And so in theory, that holds a guy back. Because
I wonder if Brock Purdy will like kind of continue. And it's gotten him in trouble, right? He's had good plays and bad plays because of this. But I do think he has some moments where he makes the play that you're not supposed to make just because he thinks he can do it, whether or not Kyle Shanahan says not to or whatever. And I kind of hope that he keeps that with him, even though sometimes it's gotten him in trouble and he's made disastrous plays. He also has made good plays with it. But I think you want if you're going to put that much on a guy's shoulder and make him your franchise quarterback, you want him to be confident. You want him to be willing to take risk, even if those risks don't always work out. Like Patrick Mahomes is always going to take the risk because he believes in himself, and you kind of have to empower that, right? Like I think that's probably Andy Reid's biggest evolution is just like his ability to empower a guy versus being stubborn and restrictive. I think that's probably a big thing that is a difference between Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. They both come from like the same system and they both, you know, started similar times, but I think Sean McVay has a ring because he kind of is able to let players run the team, not him. You know, he doesn't want the star power for himself. And I don't know if it's Kyle seeing his dad not getting into the Hall of Fame. So maybe he like feels the need to make sure that people know it's him. That way he can eventually get the glory if that's what he's after. But I think that that's holding him back right now from a Super Bowl is his need to make it about him in the biggest moments instead of letting players be the best that they can be.
I totally agree. I think he's a good coach, and it's going to be hard for him to get over that hump because I agree with you. I feel like there's whatever with his dad had something going on there to where. So I'm saying I really feel like Kyle wants to be a pass heavy type guy. He likes that. Kyle likes explosive plays. Kyle Shanahan's a flashy type person, so to speak. You know, he wants to be.
He wants it to be dramatic. He wants the attention. That's kind of interesting. I like your perspective because I feel like people assume opposite, but I think you did a good job about being like, well, if you look at the most important moments, what is he actually like? And I think you have a good point. It's interesting that he doesn't have that reputation, but if you look at the critical situations, he should. That's kind of, I like that you picked up on that.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine, you know, and if that's what you want to do, just be true to yourself. Build the offense. Line, dude.
It's like don't be shy about it, then like actually embrace it.
Yeah. Especially when you have the receivers to accomplish it. He has the receivers.
Yeah, you're like right now you could actually do that.
So
and this like I said,
if they don't fix the O-line in the draft, do something with it. They got to beef it up just a little bit. But if they don't, they go into this thing again. It's going to be a rough season, and I don't think the 49ers
will. Do you think the 49ers will get back to the Super Bowl this upcoming year? I saw a comment in here that said, I thought it was kind of interesting, but it was just talking about the probability of people. Mitchell and S said, it would be a miracle to reach the Super Bowl again next year. I see the 49ers sliding back for a few years, maybe before getting there again. Do you think that they can run it back and actually make it that far again?
Statistics and history says no. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with that because there's just not enough changes.
They got not only did they have amazing players, but something that I think people, fans don't like to talk about is there is a little bit of luck involved when it comes to whoever ends up winning the Super Bowl. Health is a huge thing, and they were healthy last year. And with Kyle Shanahan, their lead running back being healthy all year and their quarterback being healthy every year is something that has never happened but with him before. except for the years that they've gotten to the Super Bowl. So for them to repeat that with a guy, no offense, Christian McCaffrey, who had really suffered from injuries prior to last year, I agree. It'll be a bit of a miracle if he can stay healthy all year. And I think the only way they do that is if in the regular season, Kyle does change his philosophy a little more and is willing to involve more people and not put that same immense load where by the time they got to the playoffs, Christian McCaffrey was kind of already worn down. You know what I mean? And then with your quarterback, it goes back to the offensive line. You really need to bolster that if you want Brock Purdy to stay healthy again.
Well, not only that, well, how about this, Ash? I got a super simple solution to keep Christian healthy. There's a guy named Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
A guy named Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it. I mean, you use Debo like that. You used him before. I mean, you have options. You know, there's options. And this goes back
do you think Jordan Mason will get a good amount of targets this year? Like enough to eventually be the number 2 running back or no? If you had to put money on it. Not what you want, but just what you think will happen.
I don't think so because Kyle likes Elijah Mitchell too much. There's the Elijah Mitchell factor. And then he just got this other guy, and if this other guy happens to have a half a day good practice at, volunteer training camp.
Yeah, the guy from the Patrick Taylor from the Packers. Yeah. Dang. Okay. Well, Niner Gang, thank you so much for joining me. I ended up having a really good time. Like I said, I originally was going to go live with Steph, but I'm glad that I got to do a little bit of a call, and I'm glad you called in because I've done a couple of these and I haven't seen you. And then I saw you on, I think it was on Grant's channel, and I was like, I know that guy.
There you go. Good to see you, Ash. I don't call in. I'm still watching it. Listen, and I got a bunch of kids. House husband,
Hell yeah.
wife. Keep the wifey happy.
Did you? Where are you based off of? Did you see the solar eclipse thing, or was it just normal?
We're here in Fresno, Central California.
Yeah, it just looked normal to me, right?
Just another day out here. Another beautiful skies.
Yeah, I was like, it looks nice. I don't see anything. Well, have a good time, Niner Gang. Thank you so much for calling in.
You too, Ash.
See ya. Bye. Okay, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everyone who called in, and I really appreciate Marco who helped me out in the beginning part of this stream. So everyone make sure to like and subscribe to his channel. It's Clutch Sheen Sports. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel right now. Leave a comment. That helps. I'm checking my subscribers. I really want to get to 3,000 by the time the next season starts. So I need everyone to like and subscribe for that to happen because I'm kind of far. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to Corey. He just said, bye, Ashley. He called in. I really appreciated everyone for joining me and for joining in the comments and everything. Thank you guys so much. And then someone said I should get a little desk. I agree. I used to have a desk and stuff and be a little more consistent, but I was going back and forth to New York and I was staying with my friends for a little while. And while I was away, my little sister, who sometimes watches me, so I'm dissing her right now, changed my room all around and took away my desk. But I'll definitely set it up a little better. Thank you so much for the suggestion, Mitchell and S. I always see you in the comments too, so I appreciate you. Thank you guys. Have a really great start to your week. Happy Monday. I appreciate you guys joining me. Bye.